Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Class 1A podcast. Today we are diving into 6 big moments that manga fans are excited to see animated in season 6 of My Hero Academia. Yes, that is a mouthful, but these moments are so juicy that it's completely worth opening up with that, because we have 6 here. We came up with a massive list, kind of narrowed it down to these top 6. So if your favorite moments aren't on here, we totally understand. Season 6 is set up to be a fantastic season of My Hero Academia, but today, me, Andrew Nimsgren, James Graham, and Dylan Beal are going to be digging into 6 moments that we're all excited about. Just kind of talking about why we're excited about it and all that. But before we actually start talking about the moments, it's been a while since all 3 of us have been back on a podcast. I'm excited to get going. We're starting to get close to season 6. This is obviously our first season 6 centric episode, which we haven't done in forever. And now from here on out, it's all season 6, which is so much fun to do.
I'm hyped. I love it. I don't know, especially like the lead up to it. There's like these. It's about like what 4 or 5 weeks until we actually have the episodes.
Yeah.
But always during this time, whenever we do like the lead up, where we're like, oh, all the ones we're hyped for, and then like the recap of the last one, everything. I don't know. It's always, I don't know. It's exciting. I get little shivers. It's great.
It's gonna be nice to just get back. Like, it's gonna be nice to get back into the rhythm of knowing, like, I get new animated My Hero every week. You know what I mean? And just like the anticipation of having that, like, and looking forward to it and stuff like that. Like, I love like waking up and reading the chapters as much as the next guy, but like I'm done that in like maybe 5 minutes. You know what I mean? But I get 23 minutes ish,
Yep.
uninterrupted, and I'm pumped, absolutely pumped.
No, I completely agree. I mean, I remember when we used to record these early on, I'd wake up like at 4 in the morning, which is when they'd come out my time, and watch it, and then go back again and watch it again right before it came out, because I was just so excited to see what was happening, because that was before I read the manga when he first started. Now, obviously, the manga is a little different, but that's how excited I used to be for these episodes coming out.
Okay. I want to correct the record a little bit because I don't think you always woke up at 4 a.m. I think sometimes you were staying up till 4 a.m. to watch it, and then you went to bed.
Yeah,
Either way.
You degened it out, man. We get on camera, we find Andrew, and he's just like in a glaze.
I'm
like
2 Red Bulls in at fucking 8 in the morning. But I mean, I think just another reason I love this kind of episode before we dive into the first one is that it reminds us of like how awesome sometimes My Hero Academia can be, because we're looking at just the best moments sometimes in a manga and a kind of a arc as long as a war arc. So obviously, before we start talking about anything, this is for anyone that has read all the way through the war arc and a little bit into the hospital arc right before Deku kind of takes off, is kind of what we're assuming for. We're assuming if you read the manga, you're probably all the way caught up on the series, but there will be spoiler warnings. We're talking about all the big moments from the upcoming war arc and maybe a little bit afterwards. So that is what we're doing. That's a big spoiler warning kind of going forward. But with the war arc, there were so many cool moments. It's one of the longest arcs in My Hero Academia history. So just talking about the top ones, got goosebumps a couple times talking about it. But are you guys ready to dive right into the first one?
Let's get into it.
So I will take off this first one. I'll let you guys kind of take off your other ones after this. But I want to pitch to you the best episode of My Hero Academia that's probably ever going to happen. Chapter starts up. War arc isn't going very well. You just see a plane coming in from over the sky. And who is it? Back from the dead or supposed dead? Best Jeanist. Has a couple really cool quotes here. He has a steel fiber cable, which apparently, because it says fiber, he can control it. And he jumps out of the plane, wraps up Gigamachia. And even though as the episode's going on, there's a lot of big combat, a lot of big moments with him being back, things aren't looking rough. And you know what the episode's going to end with? Coming from underground, yelling his line, yelling power, coming up and uppercutting a Nomu into the sky is Mirio coming back after losing his quirk. I mean, not even one of these moments would be such a cool My Hero Academia moment by itself, but knowing that this all happened in one chapter, it's guaranteed to be in the same episode pretty much at some point during the season, and it is just 2 big moments, one at the beginning, one at the end, that is going to make for such a hype and unpredicted episode for people that haven't seen it, and for us seeing both these characters back on screen for the first time in such a long time is going to make it so cool for us to see again. I mean, do you guys agree? Do you think that is going to be a great episode, or am I just kind of spewing stuff and you think that's not even close to the highlight?
All right. Well, okay. Just to start off, I am never going to have a moment where I don't completely just get super hyped over seeing the back-to-back greatest Genist of all time show up. He's incredible. He's so cool. He's amazing. And then the second reason why I'm hyped for that is because real manga heads out there, the ones that have to read the leaks on Fridays because you can't wait for it, are going to remember the panel with Mirio Because when he comes back, the fan translation was not power, but instead it was just Pog. I'm just gonna remember that during that scene. So I'm incredibly hyped for that episode, regardless.
I do. I remember like having like a visceral response to like opening, like not opening, like literally, because we read it in the browser. But like I remember seeing Best Jeanist in the plane and losing my goddamn mind.
Yes.
Because I thought that was the coolest thing. We hadn't seen him in so long. You thought he was dead. Like it was. I remember being super pumped for that, and I'm so excited to see it animated. It's gonna be sick.
Because we really didn't know what was happening with Hawk still. I mean, anime-only watchers have no idea what side Hawks is on at this point still, too. So that kind of reassures what side he is on, too. So that brings back the whole Hawks arc and kind of gets you excited about him being a good guy again, too. So it's more than just Best Jeanist coming back after thinking he's dead. But it's also like, yes, Hawks is actually a good guy because he's such a cool character. It'd be sad to lose him as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's gonna that one episode is gonna be incredible.
Yeah, I mean, Dylan, I think you had something else that kind of cut off there for a second.
No, you literally said the exact same thing I was gonna say. Of like, this is also a big moment for Hawks because it is the reveal of he's not like this weird gray zone kind of hero. It's like, no, he's actually just a good guy.
Yeah.
And don't worry, this is not the last time we'll talk about Hawks here because somehow he has an even better moment coming up here later on in the list. But Dylan, do you want to take the second option on our list?
Yes, I do. Oh man. Okay, listen to this. It's gonna be so cool because forever, everybody's hyping up Mirko because obviously she has a really cool design, right? Like she's just a really buff rabbit lady.
Yeah, that's
everyone loves her because of that. So it's going to be amazing when everyone who is anime only watchers finally understands why we love Mirko. It's because this scene right here of where she busts into the hospital, tears up like every single Nomu in sight, losing arms, and then captures the doctor. Incredibly cool. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's the very end that she fights a high end. Is that right? Is that one of the fights at the end? A high end fight. And like, whenever the high ends come out, like, it's going to be a really good fight. And it was good to read through it. But I don't think that they emphasize her quickness and how fast she is in the panels. It's really hard to like capture that. Like if you're going literal frame by frame. So I just want to see it I just want to see it animated so we can see the speed there and we can see her actually fight in full animation.
Now, don't get it twisted. We also gave Dylan this one because Mirko is a muscle mommy and you actually get to see it animated, and that's why Dylan's actually really hyped about it.
Yes.
But no, it is going to be sick because she is like a very like iconic character of the show, and to actually see her power animated, like, yeah, like we get it, she's super hot, but like at the same time she's also a badass. Like she absolutely just destroys everything, and you do get to see it animated. And Dylan, you're 100% right. The pages I don't think do it justice. It was a good read, but I think the animation and especially what like Bones can do, like it's gonna be really good to watch.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's gonna be a whole entire episode. I think
100%.
a lot of that fight.
And I think that's going to be a reoccurring moment with all of the war arc. The war arc was phenomenal as it was on paper, and I think something like the Best Jeanist and Mirio kind of arrival, that can be done well on paper, but there are so many crazy fights that happen in the war arc that happen so fast, so much blur when it comes to the pages, that when they're transferred over to animation, this is going to have a massive budget to kind of be done. It's really going to shine. I think out of the list, everything behind on the list, this is probably the moment that is going to be elevated the most because of animation. Because again, Mirio moves so fast, so seeing her just kind of bounce around panel to panel won't do the same. Because we've never seen Mirko fight at this point. I think she's been around once or twice, but never really seen her fight much.
Not animated, no. Like this is going to be like her fight, her moment, everything like that. So no, it's gonna be sick.
Yeah, and again, for manga readers, obviously, this just starts off Mirko being a badass for the rest of the series. So it is really cool to finally have her get her limelight started. James, I think we don't have much else to say on that one. I think we want to move in to the next one, which is kind of a mix. So I'll let you lead off with the list, and I'll add more to it after.
Yeah, so it's kind of tied all around the big Shigaraki fight. Like everybody remembers it because there's a ton of stuff that happens in this. Like Aizawa kind of loses a leg. Deku's losing his shit. Like he's kind of like he's at the point where he's raging out. He doesn't have full control of all his quirks. And this kind of like gets him caught off guard to the point where he's going to get blasted by Shigaraki. But the GOAT, once again, the Vegeta to the Goku, dude. Bakugo just comes in and says, "Get the hell out of the way. I'll take this one for you." And he just wears like, what is it, like 5 in the chest? Like it is like he gets blasted. But I think seeing this animated once again is going to further drive home how much character development goes on with Bakugo throughout the show, like, and throughout the series entirely. Like, I think seeing this animated, like, I mean, we talk about like seeing cool fights that are going to be animated. Seeing this animated is going to just polarize the rest of the fan base, I think, into stop. Like, a lot of the fan base has a problem with thinking Bakugo's still this guy who tells people to kill themselves. You know what I mean? There's character growth. He is the most involved character in this entire show, and this is a moment when you see it animated is going to pull on the heartstrings and it's going to drive it home.
Yeah, and as like the number one Bakugo fan here, I got to emphasize on why it's so important too, because during that scene, it's an entire callback to the first chapter of where Deku saves Bakugo, and he says, "My feet were moving before I could even think," and that is exactly what this scene is. It's the full entire circle of that, where Bakugo is like, "My feet moved before I could even think to save Deku," and it's like, if they ended the series there, I'd be happy. Not really, but like it's the perfect arc to like where it started and where we're at. Like I would have expected a moment that good to be at the very end of the series. It's that incredible.
And I think it just sets up for a really, really good episode too, with this kind of probably being another conclusion, because kind of going on like you were saying earlier, James, it starts off kind of right before this with Deku just losing his mind. People are saying his body's gonna just give out with how much rage he's putting out. He does like 8 smashes in like 5 panels. Like Deku's just losing it. So the chapter opens up with Deku raging with all this amazing animation, amazing fight, and then just suddenly out of nowhere, just flashbacks start playing. You just get all these Bakugo flashback playings. You get the sad little music. You get a little bit of a Bakugo voiceover. Then you just see him jump in front. And you see him take the bullet. Everyone reacts. Episode ends. Like, if you were an anime-only watcher, that is going to be another crazy episode because of the first half, which is pure combat and just amazing animation, to wanting to cry at the end, kind of seeing that, being left on that cliffhanger of what happens. Again, there are so many good moments in this arc that sets up for such good beginning and ends of episodes, which I don't feel like a lot of arcs do well, but it feels like this was made for TV because of where things get left off sometimes, the chapters. So I'm so excited to see that.
I do want to just add to Dylan's point where, you know, you do see this, like, the loop almost closed between Bakugo and Deku. The fact that it happens here does not cheapen their relationship either. It doesn't cheapen the dynamic. That the story keeps going past this, and that kind of closes its full circle. You know what I mean? It just gets better after this too. As I'm like, we're assuming that a lot of people at this point are manga only readers, so you guys know it keeps getting better, right? So, but yeah, no, it just adds to it. It's sick.
Yeah, and again, I'm excited for all this. All this just gets me so excited for season 6. The one thing that doesn't get me excited for season 6 is this next one on the list. We sat down before kind of working on this list. We talked about this one for like 15 minutes because it is so divisive on kind of where it is. And the next one that we're including on the list is Midnight's death at the very end of the war arc. I mean, I'll kind of give my pitch and then I'll let Dylan or James, whatever you guys want to kind of go out with that. For me, I'm excited for this moment because it gives them a chance to kind of make good a wrong, in my opinion. That Midnight's death was off screen. We saw her kind of get jumped by a group for like 1 or 2 panels that we don't see her. Then at the very end of the war arc, we just see everyone crying over a mask, and she's one of the only deaths really that matters from the entire war arc. At this point in the series, one of the only 2 deaths that have ever mattered in My Hero Academia, with the other one being Sir Night-Eye, and it happened off camera. So for me, I hope they give us one little moment here, one additional scene, something to give a little bit more depth to the interaction, because for me, it's just not a much, and I hope they really fix that in season 6.
All right. Yeah. All right. First of all, how you gonna do my boy Crust that dirty? Okay.
Fuck off.
The only death. All right. Listen, Crust is great. Second of all, I think this scene is like, maybe it could have been done a little bit better in another series, but I think this was really good for My Hero for 2 reasons. So one, they emphasize the brutality of the death by not showing it. So you see a group of people and then you literally just see her mask and blood stains. And like that emphasizes that like this is the kids are literally looking at something so brutal they can't show it. So I think that works. And the second one is I think it fits the theme of the arc itself being a war arc really well. Because like think of the trope of like an actual like war movie. A very classic scene is to have kind of towards the end, or you have a big climax and it's a big battle and you have everyone winning, everyone's going around and kind of cheering. But then they take a second, they look around and there's people missing. There's people that didn't make it to the end of the fight. And then at the end of this war, even though there's a victory, there's like this solemnness afterwards because of the people that were lost during it. I feel like Midnight's captures that moment perfectly and it hits the trope of an actual like war arc really well. And I think in a different series, I think it could have been done a little bit different. But we also haven't been with Midnight, right? Because like Midnight doesn't really have the opportunity to be like you were saying this a little bit earlier, but Midnight doesn't have the opportunity to like hold someone's hand when they're dying. Like, hey, do you remember that time that I came into your classroom and acted really sexy and everyone laughed? Like there is no good like heart touching moments as with some of the other mentor characters. So why try to force that in if it doesn't even exist?
Yeah, and I think that kind of adds to like it is I think it is definitely like a polarized topic of like how they kind of kill her off, because like it's, yeah, her whole entire thing is supposed to be this kind of sexy, like, sex appeal character and stuff like that. But when you just like offer and then you don't get any real closure, it is one of those off-screen deaths. I think that makes it. I feel like it makes it worse. You know what I mean? Because you don't really know. It plays on your imagination, and you're like, oh god, like, you know what I mean? You don't get that. You don't get the closure, and I think that's the big thing, is that you're left to your own devices to try and figure out what could have happened, what elicited all these responses from all these characters to see her like that. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't think they should animate it. I don't think it has its place. I understand that Horikoshi gets a lot of flack for how he kind of does his, like, what he does with his female characters and stuff like that, but I don't think this was one that was totally mishandled. I really don't.
Yeah, I just want to close on a really, really short topic or short point about that. Because yeah, I do agree that like Horikoshi is awful at writing women. He's absolutely terrible. It doesn't get better after this either. In fact, it
No.
just gets worse. But I think I do agree that like I would like this scene to be fixed by them going back at the very beginning of My Hero and just writing a lot of the women characters better. I think that's what actually fixes it. I don't think that there's any like band-aid you can throw on it or scene rewrites to really make this not a little meh. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like, yeah, I think you're not going to be able to fix the part where you do have the two sides of the argument being like, well, this is a chance to fix it, or it doesn't need to be fixed. The only way to do that is you start from scratch and rewrite, right?
Yeah, and I do get the point about closure. I do really like the closure point, and that like you don't always get closure in every single death, and I think that kind of really does drive home some of the arc. I completely agree with that. But we had enough time for Horikoshi to put Gran Torino getting his head smashed into the ground for the fourth fucking time in the series, but we don't have time for Midnight to get a couple panels. Like, it just like I get. I mean, it's his own story. He does what he wants. It just feels so weird that we couldn't have gotten a panel or two more here. At least, like, even if Midnight, like, we just see her get jumped and then goes away. We don't even see her, like, look like she has a fighting chance going on. We don't get to see her have one last good moment. Like, it's just so weird of, like, as looking back at some of the chapters of, like, how we have, like, 3 or 4 page dedicated to something, and then Midnight's an off-screen death. And I agree, the issue with women writing and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's a whatever thing. I think they could even just do it by adding a flashback right before she goes off to fight, and then something like that. We don't even have to see her get jumped or anything like that. I think something small that could make me happy, which you wouldn't do in the manga as much. But for me, it just didn't hit well, and it just continues on with the whole idea that death in My Hero Academia doesn't really exist. Because this is still really the only second death that doesn't happen. They don't even really address it outside of one panel, and we really do move on. I don't think there's really much mentions of Midnight even dying after the chapter where we see her dead. Maybe one or two.
There's a couple panels because they do the memorial and stuff like that, and Midnight's one of the faces on there, so they do go back to it a little bit. And I'm trying to remember in the more recent stuff if they have circled back to it, but it's been a shit show recently, so I don't think they have.
So, Dylan, I'll let you kind of move on to the next one, to a death that was actually done really well.
Yeah. And so it's now going back to talking more about Hawks, but it's not just Hawks. It's about the relationship that Hawks and Twice have, and that relationship ultimately leading to a betrayal that leads to Twice's death. And oh my goodness, it is so good. It's so good. It's so perfect, and like it's so perfect because at this mo at like this moment of where it's really happening, we're kind of thinking that Hawks might be bad still. Like we're still on the fence about that. And then also at the same time, it's like Twice is like the best villain. Like it's like both these characters who are like really close to being in the middle. Obviously, we see Hawks is like purely good here, but like Twice is really endearing. He's had like what 2 episodes fully dedicated to him at this point.
Yeah.
His backstory one and then Sad Man's Parade, and they're both incredible episodes. And it leads into this, and you're just like, this is bad guy, and I'm like sad that like one of the villains has died, and like that is like such a perfect way to write one of these characters of having them being endearing. And not only that, like I think for a lot of the League of Villains stuff, Twice is our point of view for a lot
Yeah.
of it. We get a lot of Shigaraki point of view, but a lot of it is actually through Twice's eyes, and I think that's what really drives it home. Because after this moment, I think like Spinner kind of picks up a lot of that, and Spinner's also a great character for this. But Twice was the best. Twice was just
Yeah.
the best.
And I think there's just so many emotions. Like it's 2 chapters where all this kind of happens, where it opens up. With Hawks doesn't go in trying to kill, just enough so that he doesn't go on a Sad Man's Parade rampage, pretty much. And then so we go through all that. We have the great moments where Twice calls Hawks, he's not even a hero, that he never were. Like, you don't care about Toga, you don't care about this, like you don't care about these people. We go through all those emotions. Then Dobby shows up, and Dobby's like, hey, go rampage. Like, shit, is he about to go crazy now when things are gonna get crazy? Sad Man Parade again. And then it goes back to Hawks actually having to kill him. And then the moment with Toga and Spinner as he melts in her arms. Like, there's just so many roller coaster of emotions over 2 chapters, which will probably be an episode, half an episode here, which is also just crazy because there's really good fight scenes kind of with Hawks taking out all of the doubles. And Twice has some amazing lines here. So it's emotional. It's a roller coaster. And it ends in the saddest way possible. So I said there's only been 2 deaths that really mattered. This is a third one with it being kind of a villain. I don't count it as much sometimes, but this was a phenomenally done arc overall with Twice, Hawks, everything.
It's gut wrenching, man. Like Twice's death hits you in the feels really bad because, again, because of how much screen time he's gotten, you really connect with the character. You know his backstory. You know how he became a villain, and it's not like he had this like breaking point of deciding, oh, I'm a villain now, or oh, I'm a bad guy. It was this just like one thing after another, and you just know he's a very like he's a very human character. And I think that is such a hard thing to do sometimes, especially in anime, to make a character like humanized. And Twice is, and then yeah, Hawk's awesome, and that is like, and we 4 points ago we talked about Hawks as like we know he's a real hero, but he's one of the only guys who's actually killed somebody. You know what I mean? Like he's it hits hard.
Anything you want to add to that, Dylan? I mean, again, I would say this episode, even though I was talking about Miro and Best Genius being the most hype one, like I think this is the episode I'm the most excited to see. I think the Bakugo Deku moment's kind of right behind it, but just knowing the emotional impact and hoping that they do this well and knowing that it's pretty much been set up for a solid season of Hawks kind of going bad, Twice getting so much attention last season. Like they've done such a long time of setting it up of Twice being a threat, but also having this close relationship with Hawks, and you know it has to end somehow. So again, I think this is definitely the episode or moment in all of season 6 that I'm the most excited to see. But
there's one
I mean,
who
even wants to take? I mean, James, you can take this, but fuck, it's a big one.
Okay, so
the biggest one.
It's the biggest one, but it's like the one we all knew. It was the one we all knew was coming. But it's the Dobby reveal. It's Dobby revealing that, you know, he's a part of Endeavor's lineage. He's the forgotten son. And then not only that, he airs all of Endeavor's dirty laundry, tells them how fucked up the family is. Like everybody finds out about it. And like, yeah, we all knew Endeavor, like they both use fire. Like, yeah, his fire's blue, that's it. But like it gets so heavy, so fast, because you don't just have the reveal of like, oh, I have a villain son, but you find out how much of a piece of shit Endeavor is, and how like, you know, and I think it really starts like putting the pieces together of why he's trying to atone in all this stuff. And this is where you really start seeing, I think, more character development on Endeavor's side as well following this point. But this initial reveal is it's gonna be bad. It's gonna be real bad.
It like and it's also set up for we talked about a lot of moments being set up for TV, but I actually do think this one is really good too. Because if you think about it, the scene opens up, it's a TV. The TV turns on and you just see him sitting there talking. And you're like, hold up, what's going on? And then he bends down and wipes away his hair, revealing like the different color. Like,
Yeah.
oh, like I can imagine exactly the way that the scene's gonna look. And I think the important thing is as long as an anime viewer hasn't had it spoiled for them, they're gonna have the same reaction as us of where we go, hold up, this is obvious. Like the theory is so obvious that you just write it off, right? Because like almost no fan theory is correct. Like even though it seems pretty close, but like to sit there and go, they're not actually going to do it, are they? And then they do it. Like I remember our group chat too when that happened, because this was at this point it's going to be like 2-3 years ago at this point.
A long time ago.
Yeah,
well,
and when it happened, we were losing it, absolutely losing it.
Yeah, it was one of those things that you knew it was gonna happen, but you didn't know how it was gonna happen. And then when we got it, we were like, "Holy shit!" Like, it was something else, man.
And another thing to add on to it is that's not even the end of the scene, because that's also the scene that leads right into the best genius part, because he's like, oh yeah, because Hawks isn't a good guy either, because he's always hanging out with Endeavor. He did this thing to Genus, and then that's when it's like, nope, sorry, and he rolls in. So like, if you think about it, this is going to be 2 episodes back to back. This is going to be it's too. I can't handle it. I actually can't handle how great those 2 episodes back to back. It's going to be the best 2 weeks. It's going to be the best 2 weeks.
Yeah, just remembering reading these chapters now too. It was like, that was what, like fucking like 2 months of hype. Like just every week was just
every single chapter was what is happening. And I really hope they drive that home in the anime. I really hope they do all this time justice. There's so many moments, but if you just focus on those big ones, fill in the gaps with some cool fighting in between, you're gonna nail this season. All you have to do is hit those big 10 moments and just fill in the gaps, and you have a phenomenal season of My Hero Academia. And this is no doubt, because it kind of opens up Shoto and Endeavor's relationship, Toya's and Endeavor's relationship. And then and Dabi's just so lackadaisical in all this too. So like as it's happening, he's just dancing around, and the chapter is what he called Dabi's dance or whatever. And just like he thinks he's just the smartest motherfucker in the world, stopping an entire war just to drop this bomb in the middle. And you know, the second that chapter starts, about 2 panels in, that yep, things have changed, even in the middle of a war. That like this is the next level. That this is going to have big repercussions that we do see down the road. So it is just such a cool moment that had been building for 3 seasons probably. I think season 5 is really where we started getting attention on it, but you kind of get the ideas of why Shoto hates him so much. I think we saw a video of Toya very early on, and when Shoto's talking about his past and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's been set up for so long, and then actually learning the backstory of Dabi, ridiculous.
Oh yeah, it's cool.
Season 6 is going to be a good one, boys. These are 6 moments. We had a bunch of honorable mentions. There's other moments, too, that maybe we just don't remember. Maybe we didn't want to include in here. We want to try to keep it about 30 minutes. So I think just because these are 6 moments we want doesn't mean that someone else's favorite moment might not be on this list. I think a lot of characters kind of get moments. Uraraka and Uraraka gets a moment. I can't think of their name
it's
right
the
now.
It's the whole Gigamachia thing, right? Like with like the canister and everything like that.
No. I'm trying to think. What's the villain girl's name? That was close to twice. Why am I blanking?
The Toga fight. Yeah, the Toga
fight.
fight.
Uraraka, they fight, and they have like a really weird but interesting moment there too. Like, again, I can't believe I just completely blanked on the name that hard there, but like that's a moment that we didn't really think of, but that was a really cool chapter when we read it. Like, there's so many little things that you just do kind of those B plots to fill in the gaps. We didn't talk about Gigamachi at all and all that kind of stuff. Like, Season 6 should be nonstop action from start to finish, and that's completely okay because there's enough there to sustain it.
It's going to be unhinged. It's going to be unhinged.
I'm so ready for it.
Any last note before we wrap it up? I think that was a big 6 moments that we're all excited about. We'd love to hear what everyone's favorite moments or moments we missed down in the comments below. But before we wrap up this episode, anything else you guys want to call out or any specific honorable mentions either one of you want to mention?
I have an honorable mention that I think we completely forgot about, but the Jiro and Denki moment that they have right at the beginning of it. I'm actually really excited to see that animated because they brush over it so quickly, but it's like the moment of where it's like, oh, there is like some romance, like at like very surface level, but like it's like the only bit of besides Deku and Uraraka, but like that's the only other moment where we're like, oh, there's two characters that actually just like might like each other. And it's a really nice, sweet moment too. So I'm excited to see that.
Oh my god, and Denki literally becomes Thor at the start it all off, where he just shoots the giant ass thunder into the sky, or
he's
takes
so
it.
cool during this.
Like so like again, there's so many moments like you have to reread the entire war arc like 5 times over to remember all of them. Like, God, I'm so excited for this season, boys. So I think that's just the best way to kind of wrap it up. A lot of crazy moments. We'll be continuing to talk about it. I think we have the recap, we have the primer, we have big questions for season 6. We might have 1 or 2 other kind of topics coming up here too. So from this week on, it'll be all season 6 or a recap of season 5. And we'll be talking about a lot of big things. So if there's questions, comments, anything you guys want us to talk about in the next upcoming weeks as we're kind of getting ready for season 6, make sure to leave it down in the comments below or go to youtube.com/class1a. If you're listening on the podcast platforms, otherwise you can reach us on twitter.com/class1apod. Reach out to us wherever you want. We're always happy to talk My Hero Academia, especially season 6. So thank you all so much for listening to us ramble about really cool moments for 30 minutes. But season 6 is set to be amazing. We cannot wait to be there with you. And thank you all for listening. We'll see you all next time.